So you're new to Withering Waves, or you're returning to Withering Waves after a long time of not playing Withering Waves, having abandoned characters like Zani and Yenlin. Yes, this is getting specific because the person that edits some of my videos, Doggy, asked me to make this video for him because he has recently returned to Withering Waves and he doesn't really know how to get some of the information, because it's a little bit different than Genshin. So I'm going to make this video for him and he is going to edit it so that way he will forever remember what we are about to talk about. Isn't that right, Doggy? Well, that's okay that I'm making this video because hopefully it can help some other people. Now, what exactly did Doggy ask me to make a video on? Well, that is going to be the Forte circuits for the resonators. Now, you might be asking yourself, what is the Forte circuit? Well, it is a part of their kit that is typically connected to the Forte gauge above the HP bar. Now, some characters have like one or two Forte gauges, like Carlotta. Some have three, like Zhezha. Some have five. Some have five, like Shorekeeper. And then, of course, you have somebody like Augusta that feels like has 20. And then somebody like Frolova has music notes, right? All of these are going to be our Resonator Forte gauges. And there are three things that we really need to know about these gauges: how to build them up, how to activate them, and what they do. Now, some characters, the Forte gauge is very, very involved in their kit. It might be their main source of damage. It might be a big way of buffing themselves, something like that. And then, of course, you have something like Shorekeeper, where it's really only used for building up your outro gauge and your energy regen, right, for your ulti. It's really all that Shorekeepers does. So while Shorekeeper is my favorite, we're not going to actually be using her as the example in this video. Instead, we are going to be using Carlotta because Carlotta's is integral to her kit. It is built up in specific ways, and then it is activated in a specific way. So let's look at Carlotta. Now, Carlotta has two. Now, the information that we need is actually going to be over here on the Forte gauge, on the Forte screen under Forte circuit. So all of this text is kind of what we need to look at. There's key information in here that we're going to be looking for first. So let's start from the beginning. It's going to say heavy attack, imminent oblivion. Carlotta activates tinted crystal every 22 seconds. So we are going to have something in this Forte kit that is going to have a cooldown of 22 seconds. When substance, which we don't know what that is yet, is full and tinted crystal is activated, hold normal attack to consume all the substance and cast heavy attack, imminent oblivion, after which tinted crystal enters cooldown, dealing glacio damage and reduces the cooldown of resonant skill art of violence by 6 seconds. So in here, we have two things that are going to be very, very important. That is going to be tinted crystal, which is going to be some kind of effect, and the way to activate it, which is going to be the heavy attack, imminent oblivion. Now, we don't know what substance is yet, but we know how to activate something and what it does. Now, the next part is something called final bow. When substance is full, enter final bow state. Increase the damage multiplier of our resonance liberation, which is our bursty, by 80%. So this right here is the part of her Forte circuit that is really, really important because we lose a lot of damage from our burst whenever we do not do this. Now, it does say the damage multiplier of it. So the base damage of it is not going to, you're going to see a little bit of a difference, like a few thousand, which we will show the difference later on. You will see a little bit of a difference, but then if we were to stack up like Shorekeeper's buffing and Zhezha's burst buffing over into Carlotta, then that's when you get a really big difference. I'm talking like 30,000 to over 100,000 damage from not having this multiplier up. Now, this effect ends when Carlotta is switched off the field during her burst or when her burst ends. So once we start her burst, we cannot go off the field. We have to finish her burst with this. Now we start getting into substance. Carlotta can hold up to 120 points of substance, so we're going to have 60 on one gauge and 60 on the other. And we read earlier for final bow, when substance is full, we will enter the final bow state. So we need to make sure that we build up the substance. So how do we do that? Well, we can't get it during her burst, but we can get 30 points from her intro skill. We can get 10 points from every moldable crystal consumed upon casting resonant skill. We don't know what moldable crystal is, but there are some other ways that we can get it. Now, we don't know what moldable crystals are, but that's okay. It tells us in a second. We're going to restore 10 points for every single moldable crystal consumed during her basic attack, necessary measures, and then for using her dodge counter, right? For every multiple crystal during her dodge counter. Now, what are multiple crystals? Well, it tells us again right here. And it tells us how to get them. We cannot get them during her burst, but we can get 2 during her basic attack stage 2, but we can get 3 during her basic attack stage 2, 3 during heavy attack, 3 when casting a mid-air attack, 3 whenever casting skill, and then 3 during a dodge. So you see we have several different methods of getting the multiple crystals. So to kind of summarize everything, we need to do certain things to get multiple crystals. Whenever we consume the multiple crystals, doing basic attacks, things like that, using her skill, that kind of things, we are going to then be turning those multiple crystals into substance. Once we have a full gauge of substance, we then enter a state in which we get an 80% raise to the multiplier of her burst. So that is the goal, to fill the Forte gauge to then get into that state. So let's actually show all of that in action. So if we go into these different fights, which we're probably going to be cutting around in like the game footage to kind of show what we're doing, I guess show what I'm doing, we are needing to build up the Forte gauge, right? Through the use of her skill, through the use of her dodge counters, through the use of her basic attacks, that kind of stuff. Now on the screen, this little 6-pointed star, ice star, snowflake thing next to Carlotta, that is telling us how many of the multiple things that we have. It also shows above the Forte gauge, there's the same symbol with 6 next to it. So whenever we build them up by doing her normal attacks, doing her dodge counters, all of that kind of stuff, it will show how many we have. We need to deplete them by using her skill and using her basic attacks, right? So we need to build them up to then use them to shrink it back down. Also notice that next to, above the Forte gauge, there's an hourglass. This hourglass actually shows us when we're in final bow state. So right now, Carlotta is in final bow state and is going to last. And whenever that hourglass disappears, the cooldown is over and we can enter it again. So we need to make sure that we're getting a full Forte gauge to get the final bow state before we use her ulti. Now, if we have the Forte gauge full, we have all of it there, we are going to enter the final bow state. But if we also do a heavy attack, we are going to do that special heavy attack, the Oblivion thing. That is going to do a large instance of glacial damage, as well as reset our skill cooldown, or not reset, it's going to decrease it down to like 6 seconds. So that way we can start the process over after we go through her ulti. If we don't have that, by the time we finish her ulti, the skill will not be reset. We cannot start the next rotation. So this helps us with getting that next rotation in place. So you're going to see that as we're going to go through, we're going to do this without entering the final bow state to kind of see the difference of damage that we're going to get with it and without it. So on the top, we're going to see without the final bow state, and at the bottom, we're going to see with the final bow state. Now, of course, there's going to be differences in crits and things like that, but this is going to be Carlotta doing it, only Carlotta, nothing from Shorekeeper, nothing from Zhuzh, with the final bow state and without the final bow state. And you can see just the crazy difference in damage. And you're going to be able to see a difference in the damage. Now, if we were to scale up and use Shorekeeper and Zhuzh to then buff Carlotta with and without the final bow state, you're going to see an even bigger difference in the damage. And that should be what's on screen right now, as long as Doggy did what he was supposed to do. On the top, we're going to have no final bow. On the bottom, we are going to have with final bow. So you should be able to see a massive difference in damage between those two. Now, Wuthering Waves is a game where you really need to understand the kits and kind of what kind of damage you are doing with each character to get the full capabilities out of the characters. So understanding their Forte gauges, understanding the Forte circuits and how they work and how to activate and all of that stuff is very, very important. So I hope that by watching this video, you know where you can go to kind of read and look for those key things about their Forte circuits and kind of skip past all of the random flavor text that just kind of gets really, really confusing. So I hope that this video has actually helped you in learning or figuring out how to go learn different kits, because this is exactly what I do for all of my videos, right? I'll sit down and I'll read the Forte circuit, get rid of the flavor text that I can, and figure out what I need to do to activate it and how to explain the kit. So you're also kind of getting like an inside look as to how I make my videos, I prepare for them and figure out the kits. Yes, I do talk to Sunar a bunch and some other people in the Discord about something if I have a question, but generally this is what I do. I sit down, I read the Forte circuit, read the burst, read the skill, figure out where all of their damage is coming from and how their Forte circuit factors into it, and then I can explain it. So I hope that this video has been helpful. If you enjoyed it, make sure you comment, like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Shorekeeper has blue hair, I have green hair, and I'll see you in the next one.